Story 1. That 9-hour period between back-to-back work shifts feels like a slightly longer, more dystopian lunch break rather than being at home. Story 2. For me, it was yoga. Everyone said it was so relaxing and super chill. I thought I would just stretch a bit and breathe. No, my first class felt like a full-on circus act. Story 3. I always thought anxiety was nothing serious until I experienced it myself. Story 4. Just push through it. Turns out burnout doesn't feel dramatic. It feels quiet, numb, and like you slowly stop being yourself. Story 5. You will get used to it. Over time, you can slowly adapt to stress, unhappiness, or exhaustion without realizing it is wearing you down. Story 6. You never know what others are going through. I choose my words more wisely these days with 2 kids. Story 7. Heart palpitations are not totally debilitating but are very annoying. Story 8. Unrequited love. Damn, that was way worse than I thought it would be. Story 9. I free climbed down a cliff face. I was a novice and had little problem climbing up about 80 feet to a small cave in the Grand Canyon. I enjoyed the view, then started the climb down and was terrified. I could not see the handholds and footholds below me when hugging the cliff like that. People in my group helped me with verbal cues. I dropped the final 20 feet or so after almost an hour of climbing back down. Story 10. Burnout begins as tiredness until it reaches a point where your brain refuses to start simple tasks, and everything feels vaguely threatening for no reason. You do not even feel sad. You feel hollow and stuck. Your tolerance for minor noises disappears, which feels unfair. Story 11. The 24 hours before the colonoscopy were not fun. The procedure itself had no issues. Story 12. Fake it until you make it. I wanted to lose weight. Instead, I almost lost my life due to developing an eating disorder. Story 13. Driving into a ditch. All through my childhood, I heard people say they drove into the ditch, pushed themselves out, and kept going. It's not always a big deal. I did not realize the terminology. If someone leaves the road and flips their car, they say, "I rolled my car," and often do not mention landing in a ditch. The same applies to hitting a tree. The first time I hit a mile drift while going too fast in winter and oversteered, I ended up in the ditch and, about 2 seconds later, partially mounted on a fence post. It was terrifying. Story 14. Gas. I've had stomach aches so painful I was curled up on the floor, figuring out how I could get to the emergency room. One fart later, I felt completely healed. If anyone could bottle that kind of relief, they would be rich. I prayed to every god to make the pain go away, even making deals with the devil. Story 15. Chronic sinus issues. Just blow your nose, bro. What the hell? I have an endless supply of mucus. My entire face hurts. My eyes are watering, and I have an intense itch in my throat and inner ears that cannot be scratched. I have a debilitating headache. I have tried every medicine and surgery that has been recommended. I regularly scream into my pillow in frustration. It is not seen as a reason to miss work and, in some people's eyes, even social events. I have to remain a fully functioning member of society. But yeah, sorry my sniffling is annoying you, fucking dickhead. Story 16. Crowd crush. Grade A Tour 2022 during the Suicide Boys set. The venue was outdoors. The pavement sloped inward toward the stage, with everyone pressing forward and falling because of the angle. It went from everyone singing every lyric to a really hype set, then to an ominous silence as people fell completely quiet. A feeling of life or death washed over me. Couldn't breathe. People pressed into my chest, back, and sides with such force, like a 500-pound pressure, that I could not expand my chest to inhale, so I had to make do with the air already in my lungs. I couldn't raise my arms or move them to get my phone out of my pocket. Everyone around me was squished up against me unwillingly, and we were silent for a few minutes. Somehow I was pushed upward by the mass of bodies, so I was on my tiptoes, and I knew that if I fell or lost my footing, everyone would fall with me and I would die. It was pure silence until someone about 20 feet farther out screamed for everyone to move, and after that we heard only that for the rest of the song. Since that day I have thought that if I had worn high-heeled boots I would have lost my footing and might have died, and others might have been injured. Thank God I wore something more comfortable instead. Definitely a scary experience. Story 17. I quickly became addicted to the hokey pokey, but I turned myself around. Story 18. Fatigue, in the medical sense, is not just being very tired. It is the kind of exhaustion that prevents you from functioning, and sleep does not help. Story 19. Smoking marijuana. The first time I tried it, I had a panic attack. That was absolutely terrifying. Story 20. I thought I would be able to make a difference, not end up committing career and social suicide after exposing child abuse. I have not been able to find employment in my field where I live for years. It was worth it, but I am constantly paranoid about my safety. Story 21. Meditation. If you have anxiety, focusing on your breathing and body can be particularly stressful. Story 22. I have kids. I did not give birth, but I have to raise those little crotch goblins. No one told me how much they love throwing up in their beds at 3 in the morning. Story 23. Tetrahydrocannabinol addiction is a slow killer. You may not notice yourself changing. It numbs you to your true emotions. You are okay with the way things are. You hear comments like, "I am a successful stoner." I have been smoking since I was 10 and still function as an adult with a full-time job. Story 24. Salary. What a load of superfluous, floundering bullshit. The money sounded good until I got it. If it were not for my good kids and my cute wife, I would have driven my Honda Civic to a dealership, test-driven an Audi R8, and driven myself in the borrowed car off the highest cliff in the United States into the most jagged rocks below, shooting myself in the face as I hit the ground. Story 25. Miscarriages are not harmless. Younger me underestimated how horrible they are. I suspected I had one in December 2021 because my period was about 3 times longer than normal, more painful, and extremely late. I had my first confirmed miscarriage in April 2023, and I realized this was much worse. Passing it naturally, as my doctor put it, involved 10 or more days of heavy bleeding and pain so severe I thought I needed to go to the emergency room. With the miscarriage I had last August, I did go to the emergency room. If you opt for a dilation and curettage procedure, the surgery itself is painless because you are under anesthesia, but my body does not react to anesthesia well. Not to mention the bills and the recovery. No one warns you about the grief. It is not universal, but for me, I became attached to my babies each time I got a positive pregnancy test. Most family, friends, and even partners do not feel that attachment until they actually meet a living, breathing baby. So when you grieve the life inside you that was lost before it had a chance to be met by the outside world, you grieve alone. I have lost many relatives to death over the years, and I can say with certainty that losing an unborn baby is worse. No one checks in on you except during the first week when you are bleeding, if you are lucky. No one offers support. Workplaces that will give bereavement leave for parents and grandparents and so on will not offer leave time while you recover from this. It is a nightmare I would not wish on anyone, and I have had to experience it 3 times. Egg retrieval for in vitro fertilization is also much more painful than doctors describe. I could not eat, use the bathroom, or sleep normally for about a week after that procedure, and I did not even have ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. Story 26. Getting hit by a big wave taught me a lot. I am a decent swimmer, but the first time a wave pulled my legs out from under me and swept me about 10 meters into the sea, it was a wake-up call. I am much more careful now. Story 27. Also getting my period. I remember thinking, wow, I am going to be so grown up, but then the horrible reality hit. I did not anticipate the mess and the smell or the all-encompassing pain and discomfort. The hormone fluctuations are brutal. Such a blight on humanity. Story 28. I drank a gallon of milk within an hour and did not vomit. Caused the worst stomach pain I have ever experienced. For 72 hours afterward, I ate only 4 to 6 saltine crackers and spent most of the time wishing I had just vomited. I was shaking my head. Story 29. Perimenopause. I thought it was just hot flashes and sweating. No, it affects everything. I feel like my body is trying to harm me. Story 30. The chills. Maybe I'm just lucky, but I had never had the chills until a few years ago. I thought, oh yeah, you just feel cold, but it was different. I started shivering as if I had been out in sub-zero weather for hours. like a cartoon character. I went to bed and covered myself with two quilts. I normally sleep with just the bedsheet and almost never use a quilt, yet I could not stop shivering and my teeth were chattering. Finally, I got up and took a hot shower, which stopped the shivering. It was disturbing that I could not stop the chills on my own. I could not force myself to warm up. Story 31. A dead bedroom. They say sex is only 10% of a relationship until it becomes a problem. Then it becomes 90%. Until you have experienced this, it is hard to grasp how true it is. Story 32. It's just a 5-minute workout. 5 minutes later, I was lying on the floor questioning my life choices. Story 33. I confessed my feelings to my crush and was rejected. It hurts me inside. Story 34. Burnout is more than temporary tiredness. When it arrives, even simple tasks feel heavy and motivation disappears. It is far more unsettling than it sounds. Story 35. Moving is often dismissed as, oh, it is just packing boxes. But no one mentions the mental exhaustion of deciding what to keep or throw away for every single thing you own and the physical toll of lifting furniture all day. Story 36. I belong to a group that is not often the target of jokes. Decades ago, when seemingly harmless jokes were tossed around about people from the southern United States, Hispanic people, African Americans, Poles, and others, I joined in the laughter, thinking no harm was done. I went to England and was stunned by the number of jokes about the Irish. I am 3/4 Irish. I was appalled. It opened my eyes to the pain I had caused by laughing and by failing to speak up. Since then, I do not laugh when groups are made the butt of jokes, and I call people out for that behavior. I make an exception for maggots, also known as the American Fascist Party. They deserve the derision directed at them. Story 37. I worked a partial day shift, then a night shift, and then returned to the day shift within the same workweek. My sleep schedule was ruined for the next few weeks. Story 38. Social anxiety. The first time it happened to me was a few months after the coronavirus disease 2019 lockdown. I had to run an errand, and even though I was the only customer there, with the other person behind a glass partition, my hands were shaking so hard when I handed her the paper. It came out of nowhere and produced a feeling I cannot quite describe. My heart was beating fast, and I could not breathe properly. Some elderly relatives do not understand and kept pushing me to interact with strangers, which I hated. They always say something like, "Why are you afraid? There is nothing to be afraid of." Story 39. Living in an apartment where the landlord is a family member. Story 40. I was in a low-speed car collision. My body felt the force of the 25 miles per hour car that T-boned us. Story 41. No, you don't really get used to it. You just stop reacting as much, numb yourself to it, and move on. But that doesn't mean it stops sucking. Story 42. Post-traumatic stress disorder. I always thought it was just a type of depression and that it would wear off. Now I know. But I have also seen the term misused, or people say they have it without knowing it or just for attention. No one says I have post-traumatic stress disorder like it is a happy place. Story 43. Gagging because of something that makes you want to vomit is very painful. It used to amuse me when I saw people doing it, but now I realize how unpleasant and uncontrollable it is. Story 44. Honestly, I didn't realize how much self-deprecation had warped my sense of self until years of therapy. Story 45. A lighter one. My first 2 weeks at the gym as a 31-year-old overweight man. I have never had muscle aches that bad before. Story 46. I removed a zippered mattress cover to wash it, and later discovered it was covered with fiberglass. Story 47. Depression. I used to think it was just feeling sad. It is not. You feel worthless and hopeless, too tired and lethargic even to eat. You wish the world would just leave you alone. Story 48. Alcohol can be fun, but no thanks. Choosing not to drink may mean missing wild nights, but it is great not to have a hangover the next day, or blackouts or embarrassing behavior. Story 49. I married a girl from Indonesia before I knew she had a violent temper. Story 50. Getting lost without directions, especially when your phone or another device dies. Story 51. Lack of sleep. I have not been sleeping through the night for months, and it is driving me insane. I am constantly exhausted and everything feels overwhelming. Some days I do not even recognize myself because I am so irritable. I fall asleep fine but wake up several times and take a long time to get back to sleep, or I do not sleep at all. I have sought medical advice. Story 52. Saying just one more episode at 11 p. On a work night sounds fine until suddenly it's 2 a.m. And you're watching season 3 of something you did not even like that much. Getting a cat seemed like a good idea. Everyone says they are low maintenance, but nobody warns you about the 4 a.m. Zoom eyes or that they will scream for food 20 minutes before feeding time every day. Story 53. It was a panic attack. It was not harmless, and I was not prepared for the loss of control I experienced over my body and my thoughts. Story 54. Losing someone in your family. I lost a dog that was 18 in 2019. I was 24, so we had basically been together my whole life. When my dad died of cancer 4 years ago, I realized the feelings were not even close. I still think about my dog every day, even though I have 2 beautiful dogs and a family of my own now. Every now and then I still get the instinct to grab my phone and text my dad to tell him about something cool I saw or to ask him for help. Story 55. Toxic work environments are just as damaging as a toxic household. Story 56. Herniated discs? No, I had 2 herniated discs in my lower back. Sciatic pain ran from my back down to my left foot. I could not walk or sit for 7 months. I spent a whole year unable to run, go to the gym, or even ride my bike. I would take a bunch of pain pills, fall asleep for 3 hours, wake up in pain for another 5 hours, and then repeat. Story 57. When I first learned about depression and antidepressants back in the 1990s, I thought it was ridiculous to consider sadness a kind of illness. Then I became severely depressed for about a decade. Having gone through that, I fully understand how much depression affects a person. I spent the last year combating the return of my depression following a very difficult year, and it was the reminder I needed of how awful depression is. Story 58. Honestly, the flu. I used to think, how does anyone actually die from the flu? Then I got it as an adult and started thinking, how does anyone survive it? Story 59. Night shifts can seriously warp your life. Story 60. Mononucleosis is called the kissing disease. Sounded funny, but it was not when I had it. Story 61. Swimming in deep water while drunk. I have been a strong swimmer my whole life, having both swum and dived in school. Some of my earliest memories are from a toddler swimming class. One day I was out on the lake with several friends. We had rented a boat and were on our way back to the marina after a very fun day. My hat blew off and I jumped in to get it. The boat had not fully stopped moving and had drifted a little farther from me than I expected. I struggled to get back to the boat in the choppy water and almost could not keep my head above the water. A friend noticed and jumped in to help me swim back. I still occasionally text him to say thank you for possibly saving me from drowning. Story 62. Taking a stimulant medication for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder without eating anything first. Story 63. Marriage. Laughing very hard. Okay, not a serious comment, but someone needed a chuckle this morning. To the person who chuckled, you're welcome. Laughing out loud. Story 64. Piercings are how I found out I get keloids. I can get tattoos, but punctures like piercings cause raised scarring and are sometimes painful. Story 65. Salmonella. I will never eat anything with raw egg again. It was the worst pain I have ever felt. Story 66. I experienced a strange heart reaction after taking a gummy. I thought my heart was going to come out of my chest. It took a while to understand what was happening, and I never took another. Story 67. I guess staying up all night is easier than it is harmless. I crash before 12 p.m. Every time. Story 68. Shingles is a rash. I have had poison ivy before, so I wondered how bad it could be. Nothing I have experienced hurts like shingles. All the nerves under the rash feel like they are on fire. Story 69. I am posting a picture to Reddit of a locked chest I found while hiking. Story 70. I had an eating disorder. To be fair, I did not have social media at the beginning, so I did not even know the term. Story 71. I took a breath of carbon dioxide under controlled circumstances. Never again. Story 72. Harvest the RAM from it. Pack it up, then kick the box down a flight of stairs. Make the box look as distressed as possible. Sell the RAM for profit. Story 73. Thunderstorm asthma attacks. It may not sound harmless, but I did not expect it to be as terrifying as when it happened to me. I thought I was dying. As someone who does not have asthma, I completely underestimated the terror of a full-blown asthma attack. Add intense rain and wind to that mix, and it felt like being waterboarded by the sky. Story 74. Autistic shutdowns are often mistaken for a child being quiet and staring into space, but they are a full-body response and can affect people physically and mentally for days afterward. Even into my mid-20s, I have to take days off when one occurs. Story 75. Extended hospital stays can make you feel like you are losing your mind. Story 76. If you are too nice to people, you will understand once you experience it. Story 77. That is exactly what it was. Full body tingling, shortness of breath, rapid heart rate, and what the heck is happening? Story 78. Obsessive-compulsive disorder is romanticized in the media as a quirky thing. Mine began after I had children during the postpartum period. I could not stop thinking about my children or my husband dying. I was too afraid to say anything for fear of jinxing it. It was not until I started Sertraline that I was able to talk about it. It no longer has power over me. The more I talk about it, the less power it has. I would never have been able to get there without medication. I had no idea how bad it was until those thoughts went away. My only regret is not starting medication sooner. Story 79. Depression. Completely grieving and being given false hope. Please give me an upvote. I am new here. Story 80. Gastritis. It is inflammation or erosion of the stomach lining caused by lifestyle factors such as caffeine, chocolate, and ibuprofen. Treatment is simple. Avoid caffeine, chocolate, and ibuprofen, and follow a plain diet while the stomach repairs itself. Symptoms can feel like a heart attack. You may feel your heartbeat in your chest and be constantly aware of it. Can be terrifying. Story 81. Many people think asthmatics are lazy or out of shape. Growing up, I played sports year-round, but coaches called me lazy for not being able to run far. My asthma had been diagnosed but was completely untreated. Every time I got sick, I spent weeks or even months struggling to breathe and had to sleep sitting up. My parents did not care. People die from asthma, but it is an invisible disability, so non-asthmatics constantly blame us for our disease. Story 82. Living alone sounds peaceful. It is, until the silence gets loud. Story 83. Sexual harassment. If you've never been inappropriately touched by a stranger, even if it did not meet the legal definition of sexual assault, you don't know how traumatizing it can be. I always thought I would be loud and tough if it ever happened. One night, I sat on an almost empty bus on my way home. A man sat next to me, put his arm around me, and his face was very close. I froze. I managed to get away, but I had nightmares for a long time. This may sound like nothing, maybe a little overstepping, but to me it was an invasion of my personal space that felt very different. Story 84. People rushed onto a football field to tear down the goalposts. Imagine a crush of joyous but oblivious, inebriated fans stampeding over railings into a human crush beneath heavy metal structures being yanked from their supports, threatening to fall on the packed crowd below. I had to stop and pull several people who were being trampled to their feet, so I never reached the area of the main crush. It was kind of terrifying. Story 85. If you sleep the wrong way, you can sleep for 8 hours and wake up with your neck sore for the next 3 days. Story 86. I thought they were faking the Hot Ones sauces until I tried them. Story 87. Grief. After 5 years, there is still a well of emptiness inside me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.